got the other on there. And when the manager got there, he had his best back. I get it. She's like, I don't know what to say. And he goes, hey, what are you gonna say? That? He said, I get it. You still can't say that already. Like, yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Just for having some bookkeeping, we do have a sign-in sheet here. If everyone could please sign your name, and I think it's got an address on it. We do have a court reporter here tonight that is asking that we sign in, and also we would like to have everybody sign in just so we have everyone. My name is Dan LeClaire. I'm the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is Tom Place to my right. Tom is a member of the Township Board of Trustees, and Ed Bolanowski is also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We're going to call together tonight's appeal hearing, or regular meeting, or a special meeting of the appeal hearing of August 15, 2024, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with the roll call. Good. Okay, we have a quorum. And we have an agenda tonight. That's pretty short. For a motion to approve our okay, we have a motion by Tom, second by Ed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have agenda. Public comment period. This will be the only time tonight that the public can talk, because this is a specific hearing. So anybody, if you would like to speak, please come on up to the podium. Please give us your name and address, and we'll limit everything to 3 minutes. Don't everybody jump at once. Going once, going twice. Okay, we will close public comment. We do have one letter of written correspondence, and I will read that into the record. It's from Lois Gibbs, Caledonia Township officials. These comments are in response to the mailing we recently received regarding Dick and Sherry Sharpe's appeal and concerns regarding the property at 5868 Mount Moriah Road. Our lakefront property is located nearly a half-mile distant from the Sharpe's property, and any developments and or improvements they have made or intend to make have no direct impact on us. Our concern, however, is not with the details of this particular case, but rather what the ramifications of decisions made in the Sharpe's appeal will have. Whatever is decided, either in the Sharpe's benefit or determined, will establish a precedent that can be used in future zoning rulings. Additionally, the precedent that will be established may be contrary to previous zoning determinations, creating liabilities for Caledonia Township. Respectfully submitted, Lois Ann Gibbs and Ann Kitty, 5586 Mount Moriah Road. We'll put that in the record. Well, with that, we're going to new business. We have an appeal hearing tonight for the Sharpes. What I'd probably like to do is have the Sharpes, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you have going on here.
Yeah, my name is Bill Schleckby. I'm the attorney for the Sharpes, Dick and Sherry Sharpe. I'm sitting right here with the applicants. And yeah, we're here to do the appeal. And I would beg to differ with the person that wrote the letter, by the way, because this is not setting any precedent. Every single ZBA variance proceeding, every single appeal of a determination by the zoning administrator is strictly on a case-by-case basis. Having said that, tell me, would you like me to give a spiel as to what it is we're doing here? Okay. First, I need you. Yeah, is this on?
Wrong button.
Got it, okay. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, before
Hang on
you
a second.
start, we do need, I forgot, we do need to make a motion to open this hearing.
Please.
I move we end the public comment.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then we need a motion to open the hearing at 7:05.
I need a motion to open the hearing at 7:05.
I'll make a motion to open the hearing at 7:05. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom, second by Ed. All in favor, say
Aye. Aye.
aye. Opposed? Okay, now we can keep going on. I apologize for that.
No apology necessary. First order of business is, I'm not here to trash or cast aspersions at Mr. Dewey. The fact that this is an appeal of a zoning administrative decision means that there's an honest difference of opinion. So I want Mr. Dewey to know that this is not casting aspersions on his determination. It's just, he's got a difficult job. As a zoning administrator, particularly in a smaller community where you don't have land use planners on staff, it's a tough position in which to find yourself, almost as bad as an assessor in a local community. The other thing is, I hold the Township Attorney Tim Creel in high regard. I actually referred somebody to him the other night to handle a real estate matter. So I just want everybody to understand that I'm not here to trash what Mr. Dewey has said, nor my conversations with Mr. Creel, in which we've gone back and forth. Having said that, the appeal here, everything is pretty much set forth in the appeal that I filed on behalf of the Sharpes, and which was signed by the Sharpes. There are really two bases for it, and for making the pitch that Mr. Dewey didn't get the ordinances right. You got to remember that this involves an existing cottage of the Sharpes. It was originally set 5 feet from the lot line with the neighbor. The ordinance changed to a 10-foot setback. The 5-foot setback of the existing structure was grandfathered into the new ordinance. The issue then became when the Sharpes decided to put on an addition, and this board knows this, I think it's still the same 3-person composition of the ZBA. They applied for a variance because they wanted to put the addition within the 5 or less than the 10-foot setback. The variance application was denied. So what they did is they revised the building plans. Mr. Dewey thought that they should have to redo the land use permit, and I'm going to explain why they didn't have to do that in a moment. But what they did was they kept the original foundation. Their builder, Mike Sanford, the mason, Mark Crevier, and the building inspector, Barry Harvey. I've given documents to the ZBA in which each of them has said what their take is on what's going on. At any rate, what happened was the original foundation remains. The north wall, which is the lot line we're talking about, the north wall, Mr. Dewey originally said has to remain. When I say originally, that's not correct. Originally, in November of 2023, he had a phone conversation with Harry Harvey. Harry Harvey related that to Mike Sanford. They were both on site. And Mr. Sanford, or rather Harry Harvey said to Mr. Sanford, here's Dewey on the phone. Mr. Dewey said, keep the foundation. Nothing was said about the wall, about the north wall. Later on, Mr. Dewey indicated that the north wall would have to remain. The problem is that Harry Harvey, in November of 2023, said, in fact, that the wall could not remain because it is unsafe. Okay? So let me back up now. Under the ordinance, when Mr. Dewey contends that the wall is necessary to remain, that's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance refers to the structure. And the structure includes the foundation. And I cited in the application and the appeal those provisions of the zoning ordinance, both the existing zoning ordinance and the new one, that clearly define a structure as not simply a building that is above the ground, but also includes the structure below the ground. And in fact, I've been doing this, I remarked to somebody earlier, how long have you been doing this? I've been doing this for 52 years. I've been before, I can't tell you how many zoning boards of appeal, I can't tell you how many planning commission meetings, how many township meetings, how many municipal meetings I've been before. Most of the stuff you guys hear are variance proceedings. Not too often, I suspect, that you get an appeal of a zoning administrator's decision. But my point on this one is, I've been doing this for a long time, and almost, I can't think of a single municipality in which I practice, and I do stuff all over the state, any municipality that says it is the wall, the above-ground portion of the structure, that is required to remain. All you need to do, and admittedly, my experience is, I was trying to think of this, my experience is almost exclusively in the permitting stage. In other words, I'm representing a developer, I'm representing an owner with respect to getting a permit. We've got a violation, a non-conforming setback. And so what we do is we work with a municipality. Every municipality I can think of, and I had this conversation with Mr. Friel as well, it's the foundation. It has nothing to do with the wall. Okay? That's the first order of business. And I cited all the authority in the appeal. Second, and now this is completely independent, that argument alone should be enough to say, Mr. Doobie, you're not correct. You thought the structure had to be above ground. It's not. The structure is the foundation. The wall doesn't have to remain. Next, completely independent of that, assuming for the sake of argument that Mr. Doobie is correct, that the wall is the structure as defined under the ordinance. Nevertheless, you have a provision in your ordinance. It's section 6.1A of the zoning ordinance provides that a non-conforming building or structure, by the way, I referenced in my appeal the fact that often you hear the reference to building and structure, clearly indicating the structure is something other than the above-ground building. The non-conforming building or structure does not lose its legal non-conforming status if any part is determined unsafe by the Alcona County Building Department. You have a letter from Harry Harvey saying that he declared the north wall unsafe. Therefore, it had to be replaced, and the ordinance itself says that replacement does not obviate the non-conforming, illegal non-conforming continuing structure. I was also trying to get Mike Sanford and Mark Crevier and Harry Harvey here tonight to be able to answer questions, but you do have the documentation from them. I think I pretty much set forth what happened, okay, and the facts. I think that pretty much, so I'm open to any questions the board may have. The Sharpes are here. As I say, if you want me to get an affidavit from Harry Harvey after the fact, you want me to get one from Mike Sanford, everybody seems to be on vacation now. I don't understand. It's the middle of August. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. All right. But that pretty much sums up everything that I've got to add, or at least highlight with respect to the appeal.
Okay, thank you. Nick, would you like to speak, or do you prefer just that we ask you questions?
I mean, you got any questions that you need to recommendation?
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I've got to use the pushing the button there.
No, it's.
Nick just responded, he'll answer questions for us. Okay, at this time, I'll just go ahead and open it up to our board, if anybody has any questions for the petitioner. I'll take turns. Tom, do you like to start?
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've got one. All right. No, I'm fine with it. I understand what he's talking about. I think there were questions and answers.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I don't think I have any questions at this point. I'm satisfied with what I heard.
Ed, do you have any questions?
So on the foundation, was the foundation taken down just in that north end?
No.
Was it?
No, it was maintained. It was reinforced, but the original foundation is still there. So I think Mr. Doobie can verify that. I think, Dan, you went out to the site the other day. Were you able to, well, you probably couldn't tell because of the construction. But no, it was verified that the original foundation remains. It wasn't taken down, wasn't replaced, it remains in place. I'm saying it correctly, and Mr. and Mrs. Sharpe are verifying that as well.
Just with a question with respect to that, when you say foundation, are you saying the block wall? The footings?
Yes, that's my understanding, the block foundation that was the original foundation is still there. As I said, I think Mr. Doobie verified that by going out, and it was shown to him by Mike Sanford.
There's no way to verify it.
I'm sorry, did you say that the blocks were still there?
What's still there? Go ahead, Dick. This is Mr. Sharpe.
The original footing is still there, and on top of the footing, they poured about a foot of cement, solid cement. And then when they tore the structure down, the cement wall cracked in 3 places, so they reinforced the whole wall. The whole original foundation is still there. And when Mr. Doobie came out, and Mr. Sanford was there, Mr. Sanford took him over there and dug down to show him the original foundation, so he did see it. That's what Mr. Sanford told me, and I have all the faith in the world in him. He's not telling me anything's wrong.
So the block is on
The block is on-
original cement wall. It was the original poured cement wall, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes.
That's on the inside of the block?
It's on top, no, it's underneath the block. They put block on top of it. They poured cement next to it to reinforce it, to put an 8-inch block on it. They wanted more block on it so we would have a better field of drain for the septic system.
So it sits higher now than it was before,
Yes,
but on the same footprint.
yes, same footprint, same foundation.
I think what I want to emphasize is there's nothing that is built outside of the original foundation. Everything lies on the same footprint. In fact, I should have added before, there is nothing on the second story that lies within that 10-foot setback either. It's only the original part of the cottage. Once the variance was denied, it was understood by the Sharpes, you stay within the existing foundation for the original structure. Everything else, the addition, was all built at least 10 feet back.
Nick, can you answer a couple questions?
Yeah.
You want to come up here so that you can? Outside of the 5-foot setback is the building as it sits now. I mean, it's not done, right?
Right.
As it sits now, is it in compliance with every other ordinance
Except for the setback, yes.
except for the setback?
Correct. Yes.
So there's no height issues, no nothing. So the only thing we're really looking at is this deal of just the old cabin's 5-foot setback, whether we're still with that. Correct?
Yes.
That's what I have. My questions.
So, since you're up here, I'll ask you a couple of questions today. Thank you for coming tonight. The original application, when the original application was submitted to you, was that for an addition to the house, or was that for a new build?
So which one? The very first one that was denied, and then the second, after it, the first one that came in was denied, then the variance was set to you guys. You guys denied variance, and then the follow-up came to me, and it was for an addition only.
When were you made aware that there was an issue?
Your next-
Approximately.
I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, or however long this has been.
Spring of 2024.
Sure. I mean, I could go back to my record to get exact dates for it.
I'm not remember exactly. If somebody were to apply for a building permit through the county or a land use permit through you, more specifically the land use permit. And they were increasing the setback or increasing the encroachment into the setback. Is that something that you would approve or deny?
I would deny it if they're going into the setbacks, depending on what it is. Because the ordinance does allow for certain things within like waterfront properties, 40-foot setback from the water. Docks or decks can go out that way depending on how high they are, gazebos, et cetera. So there are certain things, but for the majority, if it's a structure, there's pretty hard rules for the setback.
Under our ordinance for six point one A, which is maintenance of non-conforming buildings and structures. As the attorney had mentioned, it states that nothing in this ordinance shall prevent the strengthening or restoring to a safe condition any part of the building or structure declared unsafe by Oklahoma County Building Department. If a portion of the building is declared unsafe, or do they need a land use permit to repair or rebuild?
No, they wouldn't need a permit to shore up the structure, no. But tearing the complete structure down is different.
I think that's the only question I have for you for now.
Okay, so your red tagging of this is based on the setback,
Correct.
setback only.
Correct.
Actually, I do have one more question there. When the applicant submitted for the land use permit, what did they submit as justification for being able to maintain the non-conforming use as far as the structure? Were they gonna keep a wall?
As far as the permit goes, there was nothing said about tearing down the complete structure. It was simply an addition to the house that was marked out. And it was marked out on the plot plan by dotted lines showing the new project that was going on. So there was nothing in there that said, we're gonna tear this whole place down and then rebuild it with the addition.
So the addition was actually, they were keeping the portion of the house that was in the encroachment, and the addition was the rest of the
By my
house.
reading of the plot plan, they weren't tearing
I'm sorry, I
anything down.
can't hear you. In the-
So,
Sir, can you please repeat this? So I can't hear you.
which part? Which part did you lose?
Which was the question?
Sorry, what was the question again?
I can give you the question. So the addition was actually, they were keeping a portion of the house that was in the encroachment, right?
The permit itself did not request a complete tear down and rebuild of the structure with an addition. It was strictly the addition that was approved.
And if they would have submitted an application to tear the complete house down, including the area that's outside of the non-conforming, that would have required a, application for a new build.
Correct. And that would have brought to light the 5-foot setback requirement.
And would that have been approved?
No. There would have had to have been a variance against the ZBA.
I think now I've asked all my questions for now, so. Do you have any more? Sorry, you jump in.
There was something I was thinking, let me see if I can catch it, I'm old. If it didn't have the non-conforming setback, let's say that this all happened, but it was 10 feet. What would be our action at that point? So let's say that, for example, they were 10 feet off, they went to go put an addition on, found out that, according to Harry, that there's issues, tore everything down, redone.
If they weren't in violation of the setbacks, nothing, we wouldn't have been involved at all. They would have pulled a normal permit and they would have gone.
But again, if they had to pull a permit for an addition,
Right.
in the process of that addition, they find out that they gotta tear these walls down, reinforce the foundation, would they have had to come back to us again? Would they have had to come back to you again? Would,
They should have, if they would have done a complete tear down, yes, because it's not just an addition.
I have a couple more questions for the petitioner.
Yeah, I also wanted to respond a little bit too.
That's fine.
As to why, I understand what Mr. Doobie's saying, but there's a difference between the land use permit and the building permit, okay? Big difference.
We're strictly sticking with the land use.
Yeah, and so because the original 5-foot foundation, 5 feet from lot line, is a non-conforming, legal non-conforming, continuing setback. It has nothing to do with applying for another land use permit. There's no need to go in for another land use permit. The sole issue is, what is my building permit? Does it permit me to do what I am proposing to do, which is tear down the existing walls? Does it permit me to do anything in addition? And in fact, they have a valid and outstanding building permit to do exactly what they did. And I want to emphasize that in the conversation that Harry Harvey had with Mr. Doobie on the phone in November of 2023, no mention was made by Mr. Doobie that the north wall had to remain. Mr. Doobie also knew that the original structure was being modified to a great extent because he's the one who now later claims that in fact the north wall had to remain. I don't care about the rest of the walls. So I'm here to tell you that the Sharpes did everything that they're supposed to do in accordance with your ordinance with respect to land use permit, with respect to continuing the non-conforming lot line setback, and in terms of applying for and obtaining the appropriate permits. And I will point again to Mr. Harvey's letter, in which he says that the original foundation was there, but also that in order for that north wall to support the roof trusses, and I got a second letter from him because the issue had been raised by Mr. Friel, that, well, maybe you don't fall within 6.1A because there's an addition has a second story on it. I went back to Mr. Harvey and I said, can you give me a letter that tells me whether or not the roof trusses were for the first story? Were they unsafe for the first story, or any sort of roof being put over the first story? And he came back, that's the second letter from Mr. Harvey, that says, in fact, it was unsafe. So even if Mr. Doobie could conceivably be correct that the structure does not include the underground portion of the building, which it does, nevertheless, under 6.1A, there's absolutely no doubt that that wall had to be rebuilt in order to support the roof trusses for the approved construction. Okay, go ahead, questions?
Okay, with respect to, I guess, can you give me a little bit of maybe just answer specifically the timeline. In November of 2023, Mick Doobie had a conversation with Harry Harvey. When did they actually start construction?
That was February? February 2024. And Mr. Sharpe says end of February 2024.
What was the purpose for Harry Harvey? In Harry's letter, he said he visited the property and did a structure inspection on October 17th of 2023, 8 months prior to 2024.
I didn't ask Harry that. Maybe the Sharpes know the answer as to why Harry was on site.
I think Mike just wanted him to come out and look the walls.
Yeah, that's what Mrs. Sharpe is saying, and I'll repeat this for the court reporter, is that she thought Mike Sanford, the builder, just wanted Harry to come out and look at the structure, the wall, et cetera, because Harry is the building inspector for Alcona County. Is that accurately? Yes. Okay.
And was it at that time that Harry said that the walls were deemed unsafe?
That would be November of 2023.
Correct.
Yeah.
But he
Am I
issued a
stating
letter.
that correctly? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I think Mike said, he came out on October 17th, and then he talked to Mike, and then Mike told us in November.
Who came out on October 17th?
Harry Hart.
Okay, Harry Harvey came out on October
His
7th.
letter.
As well, it was October, I seem to think it was November, but, okay, October 17th.
So it was like a pre-construction meeting.
I'd have to ask Mike Sandler exactly, but I assume that if I'm the builder, I'd like to have the building inspector come out and tell me what's good, what's bad, what's indifferent, and maybe I should be doing something. Oh,
Did he deem the structure unsafe at the time?
yes, I think that's what his letter says, doesn't it?
Were you still staying in it?
No, we weren't there.
They weren't at the meeting, they weren't staying in the.
Okay, so you haven't been staying in it, since haven't been sleeping in the structure since then, since October 23?
No.
I think because of the age of the building, of the cabin. I think because of the age of the cabin, that's why.
Yeah, Mr. Sharpe was saying it's because of the age of the cabin, that was Mike Sanford's, I guess, concern, that make sure with Harry Harvey, the building inspector, that things were kosher.
So, and you said that, the walls would not support the roof trusses. But in Harry's letter, Harry says that the walls would not support the first floor trusses.
Right, that's what I'm talking about. The trusses for the roof over the first story. In other
Well,
words,
he's not saying roof, he's saying first floor. So is he talking about the actual floor itself, or is he talking about a wooden hold the roof?
it's gotta be the roof, because my roof trusses are for the roof, not for the.
But he doesn't say roof trusses, he said floor trusses.
Oh. You'd have to ask Harry that directly, my assumption, because Tim Creel had raised the issue, well, you're putting a second story over this, so my assumption was it was for the first story, for the trusses for the roof, that would not support even a roof for the first story. In other words, you would have to replace that roof in order to put roof trusses on it to support a roof for one story. Mr. Creel's, at least, my discussion with him was, well, maybe it was to support the second story, therefore it's not a restoration or a replacement, but it's a quote addition. I'm here simply to disabuse the ZBA of that particular convention.
Quick question, and I don't want to get into the mud too much on construction. But when it comes to, when you referenced shoring up the foundation, can you explain to us exactly what that meant, what they did?
Dick, do you have any sort of clarification on that? I think he said before that they poured something on the inside. Yeah, go ahead, come on up to the mic.
When they did the demolition, they cracked the original foundation in 3 places. Masonry man said they weren't severe. He said, I can drill into the cement wall that's there, the original foundation, put rerod in, and then pour cement next to it, and beef it up so that it's going to be safe, which he did, and he poured a considerable amount of cement next to it to beef it up.
Did he do that on both the inside and the outside in order to?
Just on the inside.
Do you have any pictures of when they were doing the construction?
I thought pictures were given to you. She's got it. This one here is the north wall.
Yeah, just so the court reporter gets it, Mr. Sharpe just handed there are actually two photos there. Dick, are there 2 photos on there? Okay, let me have this one. All right, here's another, 2 more photos of showing the foundation. And Sharps will verify that, in fact, everything was done on the inside of the existing foundation in order to show it up. Nothing was done outside, gentlemen. And here's another photo. This shows the trusses over, it shows the roof over the first story. This is over the north wall. And I'm with the court reporter on handing this to the ZBA as well. Sherry, you have duplicates of those so that we can put those, enter those into the record here for the ZBA? Can they keep those photos?
They can keep those.
All right, you guys get to keep those photos.
So are you 2 blocks higher than the old foundation? Is that what it looks like on those pictures? Do you know how much higher you are compared to where that foundation was before?
I think Mark's.
It kinda looks like it's 2 blocks,
I
maybe.
think Mark's, note tells how much he added to it.
All right, Mrs. Sharpe just said that Mark Sanford's note.
No,
What-
Mark
Mark,
Krediger.
oh, Mark Krediger, I'm sorry, the Mason, there's a note in there that I forwarded to, the chairperson the other day that indicates the specifics.
He doesn't have it.
I've got it.
Two courses of 8 inch, okay.
And if there's any issue whether or not there's a violation of the height limit at that particular place, there is not.
Just looking at the pictures, it didn't look like it went up that high.
Yeah,
I mean, compared to the old foundation.
I don't think it does it?
No.
Okay.
Here, it said like 2 courses, 8 inch block on the top.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've got that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thanks.
In your, written testimony on page 2
This is 2 of the attachment.
of your, attachment,
Yeah, let me pull it up. Yeah, go ahead.
I gotta find my spot in here. Second paragraph, the last sentence, Mike Sanford wanted to know if they needed to save the north wall or just the foundation.
I'm looking, I'm on page 2 here. You have the,
Page 2 of 10,
yeah,
the second paragraph.
oh, second paragraph, okay.
Last sentence.
Yeah, the same day, even though it's clear from the zoning ordinance that only the foundation needed to be retained to continue the legal nonconformity, Sharpe sent an email to Mr. Doobie saying their builder, Mike Sanford, wanted to know if they needed to save the north wall or just the foundation. There was no answer from Mr. Doobie.
And that was prior to the start of construction.
Yeah, this is, if you look at the beginning of the paragraph, that was all the way back in June of 2023, long before the October 17 visit by Harry Harlan.
And did Nick Doobie ever respond back? One way or another?
Yeah, the response was in March of 2024. When did you finally hear from Mr. Doobie that now the wall needed to be retained?
I emailed him again on July 30th, 2023,
July 30, 2023, Mrs. Sharpe emailed Mr. Doobie.
and he responded to that one.
He responded to that one.
It's in the next paragraph.
Yeah, okay.
July 2023.
Yep, July 30th.
Yeah, so the next to last paragraph, not having gotten a reply to their June 23 email on July 30, 2023, Sharpe's again emailed Mr. Doobie that they intended on keeping the existing north wall and reiterated Mr. Sanford's inquiry on whether continuing legal nonconformity required keeping the wall or just the foundation. And I will say, at that point, they were going to try and keep the north wall, but that's when Harry Harvey came through in October 17 and said, you can't keep the north wall. And I'm just here to tell you, Mr. Doobie was incorrect from the outset, so I shouldn't even have to be addressing what went on with respect to the wall, but just in case this board says, yeah, the ordinance, even though, I don't even think it's an ambiguity, structure includes the underground portion, but please remember, I cited this in the appeal as well, that if there is any issue as to interpretation, if there's an ambiguity in the ordinance, it must be construed in favor of the owner and against the municipality. And I cited the case law.
I don't think I have any more questions right now.
Well, wait a second.
Mr.
Mr. Attorney, do we need to close the hearing to have discussion?
Right? Yes, and I go out of public hearing and back to the other meeting.
I don't think I have any more questions.
I think I've got questions that I haven't had answered. Make a motion that we close the hearing part of this.
Okay, we have a motion to close the hearing, public hearing part of this at 7:36. We have support. The motion was by Ed, support by Tom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public hearing portion of this is closed. Okay, we'll leave it for discussion. Anyone else there? No?
I guess, for me, and partly for the benefit of gavel people who happen to be here, that I haven't seen in my 18, 16 years of being on this board, and our charge is to follow the ordinances that are written. Not to necessarily interpret them, but to say, all right, these are our ordinances, this is what it says, and this is what we have to do. And since there was only 5 of us here when you originally came to us last year, one of the things that we talked about in that meeting was that we couldn't encroach beyond what we were. And that's kind of what we set out to do, is to do what we talked about that night, is to add on to that without encroaching beyond that 10-foot setback. So I guess as I look at this, I feel like their intent was to follow what we talked about that day. It wasn't like they said, well, we're going to tear it all down and it's all going to be 5 feet. They did exactly what we kind of discussed that night of, you can't do this, but you can do that. And we talked about it, and that's kind of what their intent was when they set out. I don't know, I'm leaning more towards 61D than 61A. They're not any more non-conforming, and that's part of why I asked Nick is, are they conforming to all of our ordinances beyond this? And they are. They're not making the part that's non-conforming any bigger per se. It's the same footprint. It's again, I feel like our charge is to protect these ordinances, whether they're good or bad. But I also, as I look at that, that's kind of what they did. It's not any more of a non-conforming than it was when we sat here last May, I think it was, and talked to them about, what they could do and what they couldn't do. I'd love for Harry to be here to see what he actually was talking about, but he's not. So we have to take his letter as his word. If those walls were decaying, which obviously, we live around the lake, we've seen how that happens. I can believe that that's the case. That the house was starting to get old. And so it kind of puts them in a spot where it is unique. One of the things that I always look at, and we've had this conversation before, is it's a Pandora's box. It really, I get your point, but anytime we deviate. I don't know that this is a deviation. I think this is just a clarification of what's there. I commend Nick to fighting for our ordinances, just like we do. But I don't know that 61D doesn't cover this particular situation. It's not that we're varying from our ordinances. I just think that 61D, when you kind of dig into it, that's what that's here for. That's just my opinion.
I'm new to this job. I am a licensed builder. I've never been on this side of the fence. Previously. I think it really is a decent thing, whether or not. But, I agree with my fellow members here that on the right track. Covered it very well, I think.
I will probably also say that I'm a licensed builder in addition to a licensed engineer. Not that that gives me any credit. Just $5 will still buy me a cup of coffee. Can I still ask one more question to the applicant? As far as the building itself, before you started, or before October of 2023, at what point did you quit staying in it, or did you ever stay in it?
And they're trying to figure that, the wheels are churning to figure out when
Just
they're last
roughly,
there.
was it a year before?
Well, it's probably earlier that summer.
Earlier that summer, we completely cleaned it out.
Got the gas turned off.
And gas shut off, everything was disconnected.
Was that early summer, or?
No, it was probably the end of July, beginning of August.
And we weren't living in it at all, everything was moved out.
But you were staying in it prior to July, August?
Oh, yeah. We didn't realize
You didn't realize how bad the north wall was?
any of the walls, I guess.
All right, and quarter you able to get that, it was sitting right behind you, okay. I'm not sure everybody else could hear what you were saying, but essentially that they were there, they were cleaning everything out and getting ready for the construction, and that would have been the summer of 2023, up until midsummer. Does that sound about right?
I just want to add too that when we originally bought that cabin, we wanted to check back to see how far back it had been built, you know, and the day we were there, we only got there about 4 o'clock. By the time we'd gone through as many records as we could, we were back to 1942.
There's still more.
And there was still more before that. So I'm figuring late 30s that cabin was built. I mean, there's quite a few around the lake that are just like it too.
Just kind of a clarification of what Dan said. So you didn't stay in there after Harry Harvey was there and said that it's unfit?
No, it was empty.
I mean, even if it was the day before, once he said that.
Yeah, thank you. Being an engineer, I always like to cover my bases. I do look up when I talk though. I've been losing a lot of sleep over this darn application. And so I did do a lot of looking into this ordinance. And one of the things that I did notice is in section 6.2a, abandonment of non-conforming use. If a property owner has the intent to abandon a non-conforming use of land, and in fact abandons a non-conforming use of land for a period of 1 year or more, then any subsequent use of the property or structure shall conform to the requirements of this ordinance. When determining the intent of the property owner to abandon a non-conforming use of structure, the zoning administrator shall consider the following factors. And it goes on whether the gas or electricity have been disconnected, property or buildings or grounds have fallen into disrepair, and 3 other items that I don't think that may or may not be applicable to this. The challenge that I have with this case, and I'm trying to understand it, is as a builder and growing up in a family of builders, whenever we've worked on existing structures and calling them additions, and we all know why we do additions rather than tear down and rebuilds, we always have to leave a wall. And in in my professional world now, I still see that, especially downstate when property values are way higher than they are, given the size they are here. We see foundations go up and basements go up right around one existing wall. And I struggle with this because we have, in one sense, a wall, which is a physical wood structure versus a foundation. And I hear the applicant discussing the foundation itself, and I'm glad to hear that the foundation wasn't extended out beyond on the outside of the wall in order to support that existing wall. Being an engineer, I question how that can possibly happen, but that's not my position here. The other thing that I look at is in November of 2023, Harry Harvey was out on the property, and that was 8 months before he wrote this letter. And if indeed then he determined that the structure was, in his terms, basically unsafe and not suitable to build on, our ordinance does provide a provision to repair structures. And when we talk about intent, I question whether there was ever any intent to repair that structure, as goofy as it may sound, but when we follow strictly the ordinance, under section 6.1a, the ordinance does allow for the repair of the structure. So from a practical standpoint, you repair the structure and then do an addition. And at the end of the day, where I struggle with this is there's a point, and it may be a minute and it may be important or not, but there was a point when this property, this building was completely demolished down to a portion of the footing and not left demolished down to a wall. And at that instant, whether it was a day or a week or a month, I go back to my history, and in talking, actually in the last week, I talked to Livingston County building official, I talked to 3 building officials in different townships and cities. Every one of them said a wall structure. I struggle with that. And the reason I give this background is because I concern myself with the next neighbor coming in with an encroachment, and all they've got to do is figure out how to deem a part of a structure rotten or unbuildable or unsafe, and then they can tear down the wall and do whatever they want with it, rather than maintaining the non-conformance, knowing that the non-conformance is still in the same position. And this is where I struggle. There's a fine line right there.
Well, I think, I get your point to that, but at some point in time, unless we're gonna go out and start digging around them, we have to trust the officials who are charged with that. You know what I mean? It'd be different if they said, well, our builder said that it wasn't good enough and should take it down. It's a little harder when the building inspector is the one who's made that decision, you know what I mean? If it was just that the builder said, you know what, I've built a lot of these and this is not gonna do it, that's one thing. For Harry to be the one that said, hey, this has gotta come down, I mean, at some point in time, we can't, I'm not calling on the building to determine, nobody wants me to determine.
Nobody's going to do that.
You know what I mean, so we have to some extent, we have to trust his position as the county building inspector. And that his decision to say that was based on merit and experience. You know what I mean? If it was a different situation where it wasn't another county or township inspector, that said, I'd be a little more, and I think you're right, and I think we open up to the fact that this guy goes, I went down there and looked like it was dry rotted, so I tore it out. If he gets a county official, who is the building inspector, to inspect it, and he says, hey, you got an issue, I think we have to take that, again, I wish he was here, but, you know, at this point, we have to take him at his word that, it was a situation where, whether it was rotted, what have you.
May I be recognized just in terms of the language of the ordinance, because you use the word repair, and I want to refer to the actual language of the ordinance. It says, nothing in this ordinance shall prevent the strengthening or restoring to a safe condition any part of any building or structure. And again, I make the differentiation, it doesn't have to be a building, it can be a structure such as anything, declared unsafe by the Alcone County Building Department. In other words, it's not just repair of an existing wall that's not torn down or is torn down. It's the strengthening or restoring the wall, indicate in essence replacing the wall. So I think to help this board out, you're not going to be doing anything which is contrary to the ordinance. You're not going to be doing anything which can be used by any other property owner in Caledonia Township to rely upon. As I said, this is very ad hoc. This is a very unusual circumstance, and I appreciate the one board members referencing the variance proceeding and the fact that Sharpe's had no intent to try and violate the ordinance, and in fact were trying to comply as much as possible, relying upon the Alcone County Building Inspector and relying upon their builder. I will also point out, and I did this in the last part of the appeal brief or the attachment, is it's a rather draconian result if in fact this board does not determine that perhaps Mr. Doobie is incorrect, and in fact my clients are not violating the ordinance. It would cost $50,000 to $60,000 in order to tear down everything that's there, because it would include tearing down part of the addition. That's a rather harsh result for someone that not only intended to comply with the ordinance, but appears from a legal point of view. And again, I recognize I'm not an engineer, I'm not a builder, I'm a lawyer. But I've been doing this for a long time. And it seems to me that this ordinance clearly allows what the Sharpes and their builder did in terms of keeping the foundation, building on it, and not violating the ordinance by not increasing or expanding the non-conformity. And I thank you for letting me jump in here. And I want to thank the board members, I didn't get the chance earlier, for hearing this appeal. I want to thank Mr. Doobie. I repeat, I did not intend to cast aspersions on Mr. Doobie. It's a tough position, nor on Mr. Friel. Even though he's a lawyer and I'd love to cast aspersions in his direction, I refuse to do it.
Any other discussions? Having no other questions, comments, discussions,
Make a motion that we bring this to a vote. Sure.
you want to go ahead and
All right, Tom Tice.
Well, before we do that, I think we
We have to
make a motion, so.
So the motion would be then, make a motion that we overturn, I guess, what is it?
It'd be overturn the ruling of the zoning administrator in the case, and I would have to say we probably want to go to ZBA 1-2024 with applicants Dick and Sherry Sharpe. 1-2024.
Okay, so let's redo this, and I make a motion that we overturn the ruling of the zoning administrator in reference to ZBA 1-2024. Based on I'm thinking, what do you, I mean, if we overturn this, what's our? Are we thinking 6-1A? Are we thinking 6-1B? I guess to me, I don't know.
Without trying to interject into your motion, I think you're probably referring to 6-1.
There's 6-1B, structural alterations and extensions which do not increase the non-conformity of the building or structure shall be permitted.
What's your motion?
That's what I'm gonna go with. Want me to read it?
No, I think you're good as long as you have the minutes.
Recorded it.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Ed, second by Tom. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call
Dan,
vote. I vote nay on the fact that I think that this could potentially open us up to more situations where people could come in and apply for a variance. And deem themselves or create a situation where they can do, where they can create a non-conforming situation out of a conforming situation, or illegal out of the legal.
I'm gonna go on the record as voting yes. The motion has failed. So are we going back to the table? Do we want to discuss it? So your concern is that we don't want to open this up so that anybody can do this, right?
Correct. I think that we have to stand on our ordinance.
So let me ask you a question. If you pass this under 6-1A, where it says that any building or structure declared unsafe by the Alcona Building Department, is that, in your mind, going to alleviate us opening this up to the next person who is trying to find work?
I think that the intent of 6-1A is to take a structure that over time, the nature, or just age, to be able to repair a non-conforming structure to bring it into a safe condition.
So let me ask you a question. The good work but made, according to Harry's letter that he sent us, it would not, it was unsafe. that would not hold the first floor, right?
Correct.
So if they weren't doing this and Harry Harvey wandered in there one day and said, this is unsafe, would they be in the same boat they're in now? Because the addition is really irrelevant to this. The addition is really irrelevant because it's conforming.
I'm sorry, it is conforming.
The addition is conforming. Is that, Nick? Question for you. The addition part is conforming, correct? So we have to take the addition part out. So remove that whole issue. They own a cabin. It gets deemed by Harry Harvey, the county building inspector, as unsafe. They make corrections to make it safe. Is that where we're at?
Well, I think, in my opinion here, we're not dealing with the portion of the.
We have to
building
be, because the addition
Well, let me
is
just think.
conforming.
The portion of the building that's in the buildable area, there's no issue about that, for the building permit. The question is the portion of the building that's encroaching into the setback. I think 61A allows for a property owner to be able to go in and maintain an existing non-conforming structure. To bring it back, to bring it, or to restore, strengthen and restore to a safe condition. So in other words, if there were boards, whether it be in the wall or the floor structure, floor system, or even in the trusses, they could restore those and strengthen them to be able to make the building occupiable again. That's after the building officially makes it occupiable. At that point, once everything is back into shape and they've satisfied the requirements of Terry in this situation to make it a livable structure, now we're not dealing with we're dealing with a legal non-conforming. The problem is when they tear out the foundation down to the footings. That's where that split instance, I would have to argue that that makes it a non-conforming structure.
Well, technically, they didn't take the footings down to the foundation. They didn't take the footings out. They added to those footings. When you look at that, they added to the footings that were there. And to the foundation that was
They
there.
did, certainly.
So they didn't take a block out, or they didn't tear the cement walls out and put all the block. That foundation is the same as it was. So, Tom, to you as a builder, if my sill is rotted, right down to the sill is rotted, and I go to take that out and rebuild from there up.
Yes.
Is,
They did a real good job of fixing the building in front of it. It's all sound. I think that's the intent to make this building work.
That's where 618 falls into place.
Yes.
so are we, okay, so is your feeling that 618 would allow this then?
I'm excited to do
Okay. I mean, I can live with that. I can live with that. I think that, again, because I think once you get to the sill, it's different if I got some rotted boards and I can go in, I can scab those and move them. But if we start to get to where the sill's rotted, at what point am I got to take that wall out? I mean, there's no workaround for that. And maybe I'm reaching a little bit because obviously I wasn't there. I don't know what the extent of the damage was. But I think at some point we have to trust Harry's judgment on this. And same as you, I don't want to see this now all of a sudden everybody who wants to work around. Because I'm not going to lie, when I originally got the letter and it said that they tore the whole thing down after we had that conversation, I was not a happy camper at all. Until I realized that they did the merit was that they were doing what we had talked about. So I don't wanna see this where, you know, we have 3 meetings a year where people are coming in and going, I'm just gonna do what we want. And we'll find a way around it. I think by the fact that it was deemed unsafe by the county, now it gets pretty specific.
And I have a lot of compassion for the applicants because they've got a lot of money invested. There's a structure that's up. And I received the phone call from the builder, what can you do to help me? And when it was explained to me, I'm not knowing all the information that I know now. I do have a lot of compassion for the property owners in this situation. And I certainly wish that there would have been probably more communication between the applicant and Gary Harvey and Nick when all of this transpired, because it should never have gotten this far.
I agree, if Harry was gonna go in there and make this kind of thing, I think on his end, he should have got with Nick and said, hey, you know, let's make sure that we're not opening up a can of worms. If I'm gonna make this declaration, I need to make sure that everybody's on board and finding an answer for them. I mean, because they're the ones that got hung out on the deal, you know what I mean? So, I guess, Tom, if you wanna make a motion that we pass this, we go back to this. If you wanna make a motion that we overturn the ruling of the zoning administrator for ZBA 1/2024 based on,
I gotta write some of that down.
it's recorded, I recorded it too, but, based on 6.1A, specifically noting the structure was declared unsafe by the Alcona County Building Department.
Yeah, I make a motion that we go to the 1A,
That we overturn the ruling
return the ruling,
of the zoning administrator
zoning administrator,
on case ZBA 1/2024, 1-2024. I'll just,
Okay, so we have a motion.
alright, now to reread it in its entirety.
Yeah,
Alright.
thank you.
Tom Tice makes a motion that we overturn the ruling of the zoning administrator in case ZBA 1-2024 based on Caledonia Township zoning 6.1A, specifically stating that any or part of the building or the structure was declared unsafe by the Alcona County Building Department.
Correct, yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, discussion on the motion. Okay, I just wanna, so I understand this, thinking about the next guy. So if somebody comes to, and here I'm kind of giving our advice to Nick on how to approach future situations. If any or all parts of the foundation, not just a wall, are deemed unsafe by the county building official, then that can be repaired, replaced, strengthened, or restored as part of a addition. Because it no longer becomes a new build. Because there's two different types of building permit applications. One is an addition. Help me out, Tom. Restoration, remodel, new build. So as part of an addition, they can literally take it down to nothing more than a footing and bring it back up.
Foundation. They didn't go down to the footing.
Well, there's the cement block wall that was there, or whatever type
And they
of
still use
foundation
that.
wall,
They
and
use
then
that.
there's the footing under
They
it.
use that foundation wall. If you look at that, they use that foundation wall.
So
It's up to that, and then up 2 blocks above that, but still within that same footprint. They didn't tear that wall down, and I get your point on that. Saying, all right, great, I'll take the block all the way down to the footing and build up from there. But according to the pictures, they didn't do that. Right? They leveled that. That initial foundation there. That poured concrete wall is poured concrete wall. Right?
Yes, yes.
Footing was not disturbed, it was added to it from the inside.
To strengthen it,
Which
which,
force, basically.
they basically tore whatever wall that was down, they tore it down to what would be known today as a footing,
right.
and put a cap on the footing, and then built 2 blocks up.
Looks like it was the right solution.
So we're basically making that interpretation then that it's essentially down to the footing. Okay, that's my discussion. Guess we'll take a roll call vote.
Tom.
Yes.
Dan.
No.
Yeah. I don't see us opening that. And we're at that.
Well, the motion passes.
The motion passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time tonight. Beautiful evening out. You guys.
Okay, let's go back to, anything else? Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
Favor say aye.
To finish up the meeting, I need to get on the record that I couldn't.
Okay, there was a motion made by Ed to adjourn the meeting. It was supported by Tom. And it was passed.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you take it down.
You can take it down.
I have to ask on the record.
Like the E-Trans. Yeah, I like the E-Trans.